What factors do you think have contributed to the recent inflationary trends?
We have to think about what is inflation. If you lend me $1,000 and I don't have the money to pay you, so I go and get a printing machine and I print off $1,000 of monopoly money and I give that monopoly money to you or that fake money to you, that's called fraud. Now, when government goes and spends more money than what they collected in tax dollars, that means that they're in a situation, like I just said, they spent money that they didn't have. Why is it not called theft when a government isn't able to pay back the money or like spends more than they have? Because they have a printing machine. So why isn't it called fraud when government prints extra money? What's going to happen? Is the government going to sue themselves? Is the government going to put themselves in jail? It doesn't work that way. See, government has a full monopoly on the court system and on jail cells and on the police. So when government prints money because they spend too much, they get away with it forever. But the money has to come from somewhere. If you lend me $1,000 and I spend it and I can't pay it back to you, somehow it has to come back from somewhere. So I can cheat everyone else that I'm dealing business with to collect a little bit of money and pay you back. But it's all just cheating. The more money that we're printing, the less value each of our money has. Now, when you talk to an economist or a politician, they're probably going to say things like, oh, it's very complex. Oh, you wouldn't understand. Oh, let the smarter people figure it out. At the end of the day, when you spend more than you have and you're printing money to cover it up, you're a thief. And inflation is a representation of a mismanagement by government on both sides of the parties to be able to balance a budget. Now, there's other little factors that affect inflation. Sure, let's not get into that right now. But the drastic increases that we've seen over the past 50 years is a direct result of poor government that are not being handled properly by us. See, the thing is, we can blame government all we want, but it's us that voted them in. It's us that aren't educated enough to be able to hold government accountable to correct this.
What do you think should we or government do to address inflation?
We have to make sure that there's enough money coming in to pay for the expenses going out. Countries go bankrupt all the time, Ireland, Iceland, on and on and on. This is a thing that does happen across the world. Now, if Canada doesn't want to go bankrupt, we have to decrease our expenses and increase our profits. That's what we do. When we can have more profits than we have expenses, now we have a sustainable economy. This is the foundation. How do you cut expenses? This is the biggest problem. Cutting expenses from a government level means less money to fund various initiatives and different programs. And we want the government to, give us handouts and throw us some money for this and do a cool program there and give out grants for all these things. We want government to have an unlimited budget, but we don't want to acknowledge the budget comes from us. And so again, we have to stop expecting free money to come falling out of the sky. If we're going to cut expenses from a government level, we have to decide which ones are going to get cut. We have to come back to the premise. What is the primary purpose of government? What's a government supposed to do? Is a government supposed to give grants to everyone, or is a government supposed to keep criminals off the street? Is a government supposed to give cool social programs for fill-in-the-blank art places? Look, I like art. But is that the purpose of government, or is the purpose of government to solve lawsuits and disputes so that we can carry on with our lives? We have to come back to the basics and make a checklist. What's the most important things for government funding, and make sure that they have the maximum funding. And when the money runs out, everything else gets cut. It's not easy, it's difficult, but that's what we have to do.